Okay, we'll call the work session of Monday, December 6th, 2021 to order. The meeting is being recorded and set in as part of the protocol of record. There's no public hearing. We'll ask if there's any public comment this time.
That's my 162, which signifies the deaths in this county. I have not yet heard anything from the commission on what they might want to do to educate the public
Okay.
as far as vaccination.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. No old items. New items, we are opening the 2022 tax anticipation note bids, which I believe we got two? Three, great.
First one is Northwest Savings.
All right, Northwest Savings Bank, 4,000,000 tax-free tax anticipation note not to exceed 4 million at a rate of 1.89%.
Sheesh. I did that
You got something in your bill for 4 million?
Key Bank.
All right,
I mean, what was ours last year?
it's about that, but still, before inflation started.
It's lower than that, actually.
Oh, was it lower?
Really close to that.
Because usually, I mean, we started out, weren't we at 3 at one point?
Key banks, 1.09%.
What?
Wow.
Okay,
What
same,
the heck?
same terms. Well,
Wow.
And then we have PNC Bank.
5%.
yeah. The indicative rate of this letter is 1.286.
That's very competitive.
Wow, yeah, same rates, or same terms, sorry.
I'm trying to think where we were at when we started.
We were at three.
Please.
Oh, it's only at 3?
Yeah.
Like 3.2, 3.4, somewhere in there?
Mhm.
And that was the tax-free
Yeah?
municipal.
Yeah?
Wow, with interest rates, I'm shocked.
Yeah?
All right, well.
What was that? 1.09?
1.09 was key banks. So,
No, that's great, though, for us.
yeah, fiscal will analyze that over the next couple days. Let's get it on the Wednesday agenda, I guess, if we can, right?
I don't know if Lisa's available. I know she's out.
She's out most of today. She's out today.
She-
Tuesday.
Lisa here tomorrow as well.
Yeah, let's get it on the agenda, and if it's not, if we have to table it, we can table it, but
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty easy.
Well, even if it gets pushed off until second meeting, it's not.
It's not bad. Yeah. We don't draw on that until mid-March at this point. Okay. New platform for employee trainings. Kaylan, Commissioner Durbin wanted to hear this, so let's go ahead with it. She can watch the report.
Okay,
Dude, for the record, I'm dying to hear this.
okay,
I don't know why I keep saying it.
I'm sorry.
okay, that's okay. So I'd like to start using the local GovU platform in January instead of the EAP. So last year we used the EAP and it just was not very user-friendly. Employees had a lot of trouble searching out the courses and it was difficult to even get to where you can go to the trainings. With local GovU, it's much more user-friendly, it's more functional. Both platforms offer a very wide variety of training, so that's not really an issue. But for the EAP last year, I had to wait until the end of the month to get an entire report of who has taken it, whereas the local GovU, I can go in and actually assign courses so the employees don't have to search it out, and I can go in and see their progress as well as print their certificates myself whenever they're done.
So you think local GovU is through CCAP's?
Right, it's through CCAP, so it's actually free of cost with our membership to them.
So what types of trainings are included in that? Like just generally speaking?
There's a ton of them, but I mean, sexual harassment, workplace violence, ADA, supervisory trainings, bullying, and I actually printed a list in small list of what all it covers, but
Oh, they have like management skills and,
Yes.
so it's not just the basic
No.
human.
we can do the annual trainings through there, but we can also assign supervisors or anyone who needs extra help
That's
in any
great.
areas, yeah.
Conflict and dispute resolution.
Kind of like mandatory, so.
So,
Coaching with character.
there's health and wellness,
Very nice.
yeah.
No, that's great.
It's really a nice platform, it's just much more user friendly, so
Awesome.
really all I had about it.
Great.
Yeah, on a different note, I mean, that's the type of stuff we've been looking at other areas, so the idea that that would be usable just generally is great, so
Mhm. Yeah.
very supportive of that.
Great, so you'll implement it immediately?
January, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Perfect.
So, I mean, just to back up, because I'm not that familiar with some of this stuff, so like to promote it or utilize it, because you have a lot of stuff that isn't just the basic, like mandatory
Mhm.
trainings, like, do we have any plan to like promote it within the staff and stuff, because I think some people would be interested in taking some of that stuff.
Yeah, we can definitely promote it. I mean, right now, we were just trying to figure out how to get a better platform for the annual trainings.
yeah.
But we definitely want to take advantage of the other things that they have, so I would say yes, we should promote it.
Great.
Any more? Good. ADP, Lisa was not able to come to today's meeting. I believe that we decided to put it just on the Wednesday agenda.
Which is not there because we don't have the agreement back from Nathaniel yet.
Which one?
The ADP HR platform that you got from Lisa Hagberg.
Oh, no, I reviewed that. Yeah, I talked to her, I had just the smallest minor things, I was gonna cover with her, I thought she was gonna be in today. She's not in today. Okay, no, I did review it, I only had minor comments, and I think we did have it on the agenda.
All right, then the government management system. So, I know we've gone over this before, so I'm sorry. But we really haven't presented anything about the GMS to the public. Thought it was time we do that. We've been meaning to do it for months now. Because we've been putting a lot of time and effort into it, and I think it's very beneficial. So when we came into office, there were quite a few things that we learned very quickly, such as there was a lack of documentation that was helpful in succession planning. Staff was turning over and institutional knowledge was walking out the door. We had continuity issues where some employees were doing things differently. Plus, you have the simple fact that elections cause intentional change in the system every 4 years. Well, really every 2 years, but especially every 4 years. And without kind of a way to document previous decisions of previous boards and elected offices, again, that institutional knowledge kind of walks out the door. There were several instances in the first 6 years we were in office that we found instances where the county government had swayed, I suppose, from the county code, and we had some non-compliance issues. There's been a lack of documentation and a lack of way to report it. So we've had, policies, for instance, that were passed by previous boards, but besides being in the commissioner's minutes, they're kind of lost in paper files somewhere. There was no real good way to do root cause analysis and investigation into complaints, and all that ended up leading to risk. So we started out an effort at the beginning of the year to essentially document some of our procedures. The reason we do that is to understand the requirements, whether they be from the law or mandates or court orders, etc. Make sure that we have all of the things, the full kit of things that we need in order to proceed and actually do it. For instance, if, we'll take assessment quickly by way of example. If you're about to print the tax bills and haven't ordered the paper well in advance, you could have a problem. We want to make sure that the correct steps are followed, particularly the nature of the county government. We'll take tax claim, for instance. If you mess up one little critical step in filings, it can screw up the entire tax claim procedure. And we want to be consistent in how we perform our work, partly so that we're not singling anybody out, but so that we can prove, I guess, to the public that we're being consistent in how we treat people. We want to verify that the documents are correct. We want to have a system in place so that when we identify ways that we can improve procedures, we have a way to update them in a logical way and incorporate those improvements and keep them documented. We also want to train others to perform the process when workloads are high or employees are out. We've had instances in the past where offices had to close down due to, for instance, COVID or other medical issues, and if we had documentation in place, we could potentially reallocate some resources for a period of time to make an office like that work. And the other reason is if we document what we are supposed to be doing, eventually we hope to automate some of those procedures on the Laserfish so that there's less paper and less paper pushing. Skip ahead a little bit. So the solution that we came up with is implementing we'll call it a light version of ISO 18091. It's based on ISO 9001, which is commonly used in manufacturing. So we're bringing the experience of business management to local government. ISO came out with this standard a couple of years ago in 2019. Again, taking what they've learned over the last 40-some years in business, manufacturing especially, and implementing it for local government. So what it is a collection of business processes that are focused on consistently meeting citizen requirements and enhancing their satisfaction. It's aligned with the county's purpose and strategic direction and is expressed as the organizational goals and aspirations, policies, procedures, documented information, and resources needed to implement and maintain it. It's basically built on this model of plan, do, check, and adjust. So when it comes to, first of all, writing the procedures and then implementing, the first step is to plan to make sure that we have all the resources that we need, we know what we're trying to accomplish, what the inputs are, what the outputs are, etc. Then actually do it, check it to make sure that it accomplished what we were trying to do, and if not, adjust it so that we're ready for next year or the next time you have to implement that procedure. So we implemented a policy in, I believe, March, which is the governing policy for this QMS, and we're in the process of implementing standards and policies which actually enact it. So far we've got a good chunk of elections done, some in the commissioners. We're working hard on human resources and fiscal, and I believe 911 Hazmat has a couple, and probably forgetting other offices that have a couple, but no department yet is 100% on, but I think all of them have been trained to some degree to start working in that direction. So under those procedures, they have work instructions. So kind of procedure is how you do something, or why and what you're actually trying to accomplish. And then the work instruction is kind of like the nitty-gritty details. So more screenshots and login information and just stuff that really helps the person actually follow through on the big steps that are listed in the procedure. And then under that we have checklists, forms, and records. So benefits of doing the program: improved quality, because we've actually identified how to do something consistently. But we would also apply for process control. It would allow for cross-training, for improvement, as I already mentioned, consistency, legal certainty, since we've analyzed the law and our mandates of why we're doing what we do. It should reduce our revisiting of issues. Can't tell you how many board meetings we've been in and we ask, what did we do last time? Especially salary board. It should lead to more successful employee onboarding and succession. Of course, improved documentation and reduced ineffective expenditures. We did an analysis in the early part of the year on the state of our offices, and as we knew this going into it, but finance and administration was one that had a level of urgency and importance because not much was documented, and we had a turnover of the fiscal director at the time. Same goes with HR. We found that most of the documentation was good in the elections office, but seeing as Lisa was retiring, we bumped that up as a relative priority to make sure that documentation was there for successor. I hope that worked. And public defender was having some issues at the time, so that was elevated as another important one. What you'll find is that some of the departments that report more to the state are actually pretty solid in their documentation, such as CYS and the prison. But ones that are kind of fully under county are less so. There's opportunity for improvement. I won't go into bore anyone with the details, but just to show you, especially Josh, kind of how the system works. Every document in the system, from forms to procedures and policies, either is countywide or is specific to a department. So literally every file in the system should have a name that starts off like this, identifying first what department it belongs to, second whether it's a policy or a procedure, and if it is one of those, which number it is, and then the subsidiary information follows after that. So that's kind of like a main document, and then underneath it are work instructions, workflows, forms, audits, validation records, reference documents, and so forth. Again, followed by numbers, so you can have under one procedure, let's say a hiring procedure, you could have 12 different forms you have to follow through on. They all have a logical numbering system, and then, of course, a revision number so that we don't have version control issues, which has been especially problematic, I've noticed over the last couple of years, because we'll approve something, but then there'll be a minor change to it or something, and it's not noted what revision we're at. All of this is stored on a master document list, the MDL, excuse me, and all these documents and the MDL are on our county server, so that the public ones can actually be accessed by anyone, and you can see the existence of said documents on the MDL. Now, there is also built into it a system for every document and whether or not it's public or not, and to what level. So it's called the traffic light protocol, which is a state and federal standard. White being things that we really want to get out to the public. So like a press release, for instance, we want you to be able to access that. Green meaning things that can be freely given to the public upon request. Orange, or yellow rather, being the solicitor should review it before, or the right to know officer should review it before sending it, just to make sure that, if it's like a blank form, it'd be okay to send, but if it's a completed HR form, for instance, that has someone's social security on it, then no. And then red is flat out, does not leave the sight and eyes of the people that are authorized to see it, such as like how and where weapons are stored in the jail. We don't want anyone to know that, right, except for the corrections officers. Every document should list the description of what it is about, the scope, both what's in scope and what's out of scope, who's responsible for implementing it, any definitions that are specific to it, references such as statutes, laws, ordinances, etc., that are related to it, so we know what those inputs are. Inputs would include those references as well as the reason for why we do it. Outputs should be self-explanatory. We built into every document a risk and opportunity to make sure that we at least stop and pause, even if you don't bother filling it out, but at least with every document we stop and think, are there any risks associated with implementing this procedure? Then of course it's the process steps, unless it's a policy, in which case there wouldn't be a process step, that's just a statement. And then again, we build into every document a check and adjust, so making sure that after you implement it, you stop and think, is there anything that I could have done that would have made this better? And if so, kick in a task to adjust it. Of course, there's a legal disclaimer that the solicitor wants on there and everything that says basically this is not meant to supersede law. If you find an instance where the law would supersede any procedure, anything you've written, then we keep revisions and authorization. So how we worked it is any policy or procedure that comes before, it goes up to the elected official. So if it's a sheriff's policy, the sheriff signs off on it. If it's like tax claim or elections, it comes up to the board of commissioners, we'll sign it, and then authorize the department head to handle everything else under it. So we've authorized, for instance, one procedure for how to run elections, and it lists like 12 different sub-tasks. All of that is on the elections director to implement and sign off on, and then all the forms and all the records and everything under that is all under her discretion. But we sign off on kind of the top level mandate, so to speak.
Yeah, are you getting all this?
It's all being Last thing I would notice is that there's an internal audit component which has to do with those checks. So initially, you can't audit your own work. So we're going to have other departments, such as Pam is a certified internal auditor, as is Mike Lyon in our planning and zoning office. So the idea would be they will come in as fresh eyes to, let's say, the elections department and say, okay, your procedure said that you were going to have a logic and accuracy test here, you were going to test these machines, show me proof. The idea is that'll be how we'll start, but I want to get to the point where we're totally transparent with the public to the extent that maybe the manufacturing companies that already have implemented ISO come in and they audit our processes to make sure that we're in compliance with our own documentation. So I think that'll really increase public trust and transparency. I don't think it's something that we would bother starting this year just because we don't have enough documents to do that, but at some point I'm hopeful that certified internal auditors will step up and provide us with that service. Any questions?
This is obviously you. like I see you in this.
Actually, the commissioners have all three been very supportive of it.
What happens when the board changes?
Hopefully, well, by the time the board changes, it will be up and implemented. Really, the chief clerk is the one that has been kind of spearheading a lot of this. Yeah, I don't think that it would be helpful for the commissioners to be kind of driving the bus. We should be involved in what's called a management review, which is a quarterly meeting where any issues are brought up to us, and we'll review them and make sure that things that were brought up in the audits are fixed, that compliance is happening, etc. But really, the chief clerk has been largely pushing and managing this, I think.
I was just wondering what happened if all three of you left and you retired.
Well, no one's allowed to do that for another 2 years.
Hypothetically, they could go back to the way it was, or, I mean, there's nothing that says that will say that we're passing it in a public meeting, the policies and procedures would last beyond the administration.
Okay.
Yeah, it would last until it's changed by a future board.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, all I would add is, this is a quality assurance program, and doesn't, like, I'm in full support, doesn't alter or affect, the county's obligation to comply with the right to know law. So in the case that there's a different constitutional board, the board still, the next board is required to comply with the right to know law, or other laws that govern, disclosure of documents. So there's definitely an opportunity here to help, streamline that process. And so looking forward to helping.
Great. Any other questions? All right. No updates on policy and procedures today, but we'll hopefully have a couple edits to go on the Wednesday agenda. Any project updates? Besides what's on the packet?
There's going to be a flurry of stuff over the next few weeks, because like with the closure of the landfill, like there's a lot of stuff to discuss with the RDA. I sent out that doodle poll, and I'm going to have to send it out again. We really need to get a meeting together between us and Andrea to iron some stuff out there. The other thing is Pam and I are working on what we're going to do with the pension related to the solid waste authority, because there's two folks associated with that, and how that would transition has to be discussed. So we still have a lot to iron out there. There's several other things, but not at a point to discuss it in depth.
Okay. On the Wednesday agenda, we've got an agreement with Lisa Rivet to assist in elections on or right around elections day.
Pam, she sent the signature sheet, so I'm going to forward that to you. And she just requested that she get a copy of the signed contract back. So it's ready to go for Wednesday.
So there was no changes from when I sent it to you?
Yep.
There's an Act 13 request that should be done today.
Yeah. So, that is something to discuss. So Wednesday, we're going to have an Act 13 grant application. I've already talked to Dan Glatz about it, for a community center in Tiddy. Both Commissioner Kafferlin and I have met with the folks down there that are
Not together.
at different times. Had extensive meetings with them. It's kind of focused around the charter school foundation, but really there are borough officials and multiple people involved in the renovation of a hardware store, and they're turning it into a community center. It's actually a really nice space. They've done the bulk of the work on it, but they really need help with getting it to the next level. And so this would be a first step in doing it. I consider it a beautification project, so I think it fits right into it, because they're taking a blighted building, turning it into productive use. So really excited to work on that. And so they'll be here on Wednesday to pitch their project, and we should have the grant app done today, ready for Wednesday. So
Okay.
the amount would be $15,000, all Act 13 funds.
Okay, how much do you count right now? 130?
Well, no, I mean, there's enough for this. Dan was off Friday and today, so I couldn't get the exact number. A huge chunk was taken out for the bike trail. And part of this may be a discussion about, fronting the money, like from our fronting the money for, some portion of the money from our, your bank account, and then when we get the allocation next year,
Reimburse it.
yeah, reimburse it.
Okay.
If that number's off, like Dan couldn't get me a phone.
Okay. So then we'll add the tax anticipation note, we'll add the ADP, and then I'll have a brief resolution for GMS stuff, updates to, I think it was procedure 4 and something else. I'll give you the resolution this afternoon.
Would you be interested in sending me that, a copy of your, presentation? And the, whatever procedure we're going on? I looked up last year, the TAM last year, 0.98%.
Oh, so it did tick up.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay, my mistake.
Holy smokes.
Either way, it's still surprising.
0.03,
So,
whatever it is,
It's
0.05.
a 12% increase.
Okay.
Inflation is real.
Gosh.
I love statistics.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. All right, any department updates?
We do need a quick executive session. After
The-
tax assessment appeal.
Okay, right. Any notes, Commissioner schedule wise?
No.
Okay,